The next question I really want to talk about the data coming in and the sources of that data. Today, our clinical trials have data streaming in from sources that did not even exist just 5 or 10 years ago. That was certainly demonstrated last year during the pandemic when a large number of trials were suddenly forced to become decentralized. We now have smartphones, smartwatches, health apps, digital devices, and other sources of patient information. And in fact, I saw a recent report from IQVIA Institute that noted digital health tools that mitigated the impact of the pandemic are not part of the digital health landscape, and that there were 90,000 new digital health apps added just in 2020, 90,000. And that number of digital health apps, I think, currently stands at around 350,000, which is a number that really blows me away. Christoph, I'd like to go back to you to start this one. Does that information tell you anything about where we're heading in terms of the sources of real-world data and real-world evidence, and how those sources of data may be changing in the coming years as we move forward?
Well, what it tells me is that we have to keep an extremely open mind in respect to sources I'll be looking at. And it actually highlights something else as well, and that is that everyone that works with real-world data, that wants to generate real-world evidence, has to make sure that has to ask itself, can you handle all of this on your own? Or is this actually a place where you want to collaborate? What I mean with this, for example, is that especially when it comes to determining the quality of the data, a lot of variables that play a role here. Linking data, linking different data sets. As a pharmaceutical company, for example, you have to ask yourselves, is that something you can do on your own? I personally do not think we can. We in Otsuka have actually made the decision that we can't do that on our own. And that is the reason why, for example, we have partnered in the mental health space with a data company called Hallmask, which is a behavioral health focused data company, because we think that only through this kind of collaboration, we can actually fulfill our ambition. What we will achieve through this collaboration is that we will figure out how to connect different parts of data that is externally available. Again, for example, US health records for patients, they actually remain in different ecosystems. And unless I figure out a rigorous way to connect those, my real-world evidence that I generate out of this data will always have gaps and will be incomplete. And that is something, for example, that we're confident we can, close through the collaboration with Hallmask.
Ranga, your thoughts on the sources of the data and how we might see that changing in the future?
Yeah, I personally, because, like I, again, said that we are more from a discovery space, what I'm seeing is development of very novel, molecular sensors and other modalities. Those are still in various stages of experimental setups, looking at data acquisition and technology adoption in the early stages of testing. But as soon as these things start maturing and are getting where there is reproducibility, things like cell surface skin patches and things like that, which, sophisticated pieces of those medical devices are already there, but much more simpler pieces of medical devices with capabilities of capturing any number of analytes from the skin and other areas. I think that those are all coming. And so the breadth of data acquisition for clinical development, especially in the early stages, is going to be exploding in the next few years.
And Gregg, the data that you guys are gathering from the patients that you're dealing with, any thoughts on where that data is coming from and how that might be changing?
Yeah, we do know. At Seqirus, we use a data set that has more than 50 million electronic health records in it. So we know that it's a large data set. I think that goes back to the question of quality, and we do everything we can to make sure that we've got quality data. But to the wearables and to the apps that you're talking about, we know that in the United States, there is such a thing called the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. It's called VAERS, and I can use it, you can use it, anybody can call in. And in fact, if I'm your primary care, I can call in, the patient can call in, we call the pharmaceutical, all of us can report the same event. And so it's a hypothesis generating. But now the CDC and the FDA have created an app, Be Safe, and now you can sit at home and you don't have to contact your physician. You don't have to call a 1-800 number. So I think to the point about the issue, are we going to have missing data? There's goods and there's pros and cons. The pro is we may get much better data on safety issues. The cons is that may not go into our health record or our billing or something along those lines. But I think, and I don't know any of I look at some health apps, but not 300,000 of them. But the idea that a person now can have some control over their health and be able to send that in, I think that's going to be very powerful for the future.